while you're gone, behind the scenes, Hall, Nash, and Six are going to be having issues with some legendary names in Roddy Piper and Ric Flair. NFL player Kevin Green was set to join Flair and Piper in a six-man tag team match against Hall, Nash, and Six at Slamboree 1997. The sticking point here was that Hogan was busy with some TV commitments and would not be working the pay-per-view. And Flair and Piper felt that Six was not a big enough star for the match. Hall and Nash, who are real life really good friends with Sean Waltman, took exception to the comments and would say that Six will be the best worker in the match who can help the whole thing get over, which implies that Flair and Piper are too old to go well enough to carry the match themselves. Man, Ted, all of that really happened behind the scenes. All of this drama is really going on where it's a predetermined match, it's a
Yeah.
storyline, and these guys are having these issues. Before we continue on with the drama here, which will really come to a head soon, I do want to ask your opinion. Which side of that argument would you say that you fall on? If somebody had asked your opinion at the time, where do you land on that?
Well, I mean, and again, Sean's a good friend of mine, but at that time, he wasn't a big name on for any organization, and so it's kind of like if you want to make him a big name, well, then you make him a big name, and the only way you can make him a big name is by letting him have matches where he gets featured and he wins and he wins and he wins and is elevated to that position. So, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I mean, me looking at it, from where I am now, it would have said, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I can see where those guys had an argument.
Yeah, it's a tough call just because it's
It really is. I mean, and again, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they were relative newcomers themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And here's these old veterans who are kind of saying this is our opinion, and Hall and Nash are kind of discarding it and saying, no, you're wrong. So you
Yeah,
can see where these guys would have some real
yeah,
issues with it.
yeah. So to me, I'm glad I wasn't physically wrestling anymore because I had a ringside seat for all the drama.
Well, everything went fine in the match between the teams of Hall, Nash, and Six with Piper, Flair, and Green, with the NWO guys doing a clean job in front of a rowdy North Carolina crowd. The issue would finally come to a head behind the scenes at Nitro in June, however, when Hall and Nash faced Piper and Flair in a tag team match. Apparently, Piper refused to do what they agreed upon when they got in the ring and called for the finish about 6 minutes early, which pissed Nash off to no end. Kevin Nash confronted him in his private dressing room afterwards. Piper would say that he double-legged Nash and threw him out of the room, but Nash and a few other witnesses say that Kevin Nash slapped Piper, and both Piper and his bodyguard backed down from Kevin Nash, who's 7 feet tall, pretty intimidating guy.
Yeah.
Man, this is two of the biggest stars in wrestling getting into a shoot fight behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing about any of this, Ted?
I don't know how I missed that, but you keep throwing things at me. I'm going, what? I never heard that story. Of course, I wasn't there.
Right. You were in
A
Kuwait.
story like that, you would think I would have heard from somebody.
You would think so. Not Kuwait. You were in Tel Aviv. So I'm guessing that that one you just missed it. But man,
Yeah.
it's Nash has said since that Piper was a bully and a fake tough guy, and this isn't the first time that we've discussed Roddy on the show refusing to do business the way that maybe most people would have agreed on. Nash himself had a reputation for being a shit disturber behind the scenes. It's a little hard to determine fact from fiction in this one. When it comes to who is in the wrong, you were around both guys, Ted. Who would you say would you find to be more antagonistic of the two?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, I didn't. I've grown to know Kevin a lot better, over the years, and back then, and of course, I wasn't wrestling. I wasn't physically wrestling anymore. I was a manager by then, but I looked at these guys, him and Scott Hall, good buddies. They're I get it. They're full of piss and vinegar, and they're the newcomers, and they want to show everybody who they are. That's okay. But time is everything. The thing lacking is good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If those guys had been working for Cowboy Bill Watts would have stymied that crap. He'd have nipped it in the bud. And it's kind of like, if you're going to work for me, you're going to work for me, and you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. And if you can't do that, there's the door.
When you start introducing guaranteed contracts in wrestling, you really start to take control out of the promoter's hands, unless you put some kind of a clause in there or something that like, hey, you've got to be at these dates and you can't behave this way, et cetera, et cetera. But man, I don't think that those clauses existed. And if they did, they weren't being enforced. So
Yeah.
man, tough time to be a promoter when you're start guaranteeing shit like that. Well, I have to ask while we're here. You've said before that you got along with just about everyone in wrestling, but you also had a long career, Ted, and you saw and did a lot of stuff across multiple territories. Did a backstage argument that you were in ever come to blows or nearly come to blows?
No, and I can't remember any uh, any confrontation really with any wrestler like that was I mean it just didn't happen. I would I can't think of anybody that I didn't get along with. I mean, there might be some names or a couple guys or whatever. If I didn't like them or thought they were full of crap, then I would just go my own way. But I mean, I don't know. There was no. Um,
Never a physical altercation.
no,
Wow.
no, never a physical altercation ever.
That's really impressive, man.
And yeah, like the one guy that I kind of thought was a smart ass, uh, uh, my buddy Jim Duggan got to him before I did.
Matt Bourne.
Matt Bourne.
So let Jim handle the that work.